and welcome to this week's YouTube video. Today I'm going to be painting this spaniel, and today I wanted to talk about the 5 essential things that you need in your paintings to make them more successful. So these things are then drawing, value, edges, temperature and colour. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to show you the time-lapse video and I'm going to talk about these things in more detail. Okay then, so let's start painting. So moving on to the first thing that I mentioned earlier, drawing. There are various hacks that we can do to help get our drawing accurate and keep it accurate throughout the painting. I talk about these in my video, Draw More Accurately from Your Reference Photo, on my channel. So check this one out if you haven't seen it already, because this will really help your drawing to improve. So the second one then, value, or as in the UK we say tone. So this basically means how light or dark is it. So the eye struggles to see colour and tone at the same time. So a way to make this easier is to separate these in your painting practice. So for example, I work from both a colour reference photo and a black and white reference photo. At various stages during your painting, photograph your work and turn these photos into black and white. You can then compare your painting values to your black and white reference photo values. But just a word of caution, remember that your camera phone won't totally accurately describe your light and dark areas. So don't be too literal with this as a rule. It is more to help you see areas that are really obviously out. And you will see them by using this method. So it is actually very helpful. So the third thing then is edges. So you want to vary the edges in your painting between soft and hard. You don't want all soft and you also don't want all hard. So remember that hard edges will naturally draw your eye to these areas. So a good way to plan your edges is to have a central point of focus. So for example, in this painting, my central point of focus was my spaniel's eyes. And then as I moved out, it just became a little bit softer and a little bit more blurry. So what I am trying to do then is, in my painting, I am trying to mimic the way that the eye sees objects. The eye does not see how your camera phone will photograph objects with all sharpened edges. Your eye will focus on one area and then everything else around it will be blurry. So I think as a general rule then, it's a good idea to try and mimic this effect in your paintings. So for example, on your central point of focus, you can have sharper edges, and then as you move out, you can make your edges softer and softer. And then when you go really far out, you can start losing edges. Okay, so we've dealt with drawing, value and edges. So now we really need to disappear down the rabbit hole of number 4 and 5, which I'm going to kind of talk about together because it's very difficult to separate them. So number 4 then is colour. So if you are attempting realistic painting, knowing where to start with colour can be really hard. But initially, you just need to identify where the objects you are painting sit on the colour wheel. So briefly then, this is the colour wheel that I am referring to. So then number 5, temperature. It's very difficult to talk about colour without mentioning temperature. Mastering colour is extremely difficult. But there are some things that you can do to help yourself. For example, limiting your palette. I would suggest just 3 primaries plus black and white and really get to know how these colours work together. There are many combinations that you could use. I think the Zorn palette is particularly good if limiting your palette, because it limits the choices that you can make, and less choices equals less chances of going wrong and mixing haphazardly. So back to this painting then, much of it is done in the neutrals, and I have a video on my channel called How to Mix Neutrals for more realistic painting, which I would suggest watching if you haven't already. So this Spaniel is brown, and I can either mix this colour from my 3 primaries or use a pre-made brown in my paint box. For this painting, I did a bit of both. I used raw umber as my base brown, but then I controlled the temperature shifts with my primaries. Remember, blue is cool and red plus yellow is warm. I can also cool down my colours using black and white. Mixing cadmium red and ultramarine deep together will give me a purple. Now this purple can either be leaning on blue if I put more ultramarine deep in, or the purple can be leaning more on red if I put more cadmium red in. But interestingly, more cadmium red mixed together with ultramarine deep will give me more of a kind of a brown Indian red colour. So I can add these mixes to my raw umber to help describe the temperature shifts in this dog's fur that I think I'm looking at. So if I add red, yellow or orange to my brown, this will really warm it up. If I add blue, it will cool it down. So to simplify then the painting of this dog, I have started with my base colour of brown, and then I continuously ask myself, what is the temperature of the area that I am trying to paint? And I use the simplicity of my 3 primary colours to help me decide. Yellow and red are warm and blue is cool. So we've talked about drawing, value, edges, temperature and colour, but what else needs to be present to help make your painting more successful? I would say that there are a number of things that relates to the texture of your paint and how it is laid. It is important to remember that I am trying to accurately describe the fur of this dog, and I am dealing with shorter fur on the muzzle area and longer hair on the ears and chest area. I need to think about how I lay my paint in terms of thickness, brushwork, opacity, transparency, large brush lines, small brush lines, etc. In order to be realistic, I think there needs to be a variety of all these things present. So I need some areas thick, some areas thin, some areas transparent. I need to vary my paint brushes. So for example, big brushes, small brushes, flat brushes, long haired brushes. And hopefully if I do all these things, my paintings will be more successful. But it is hard to grapple with all these things that I have discussed in this video, and it does take a lot of practice. My best advice is to try and work on one thing at a time and really try to improve that rather than trying to tackle everything in one go. And also have fun. Don't forget to enjoy it, because that is ultimately why we do it after all. And it's always good to approach paintings with the mindset of, well, maybe this one is just a learning painting. So you can take risks on it and then reuse the canvas if it goes a bit wrong. I have many learning paintings that have ended up in the reuse canvas pile. So this is it, the finished painting. I hope you have enjoyed today's video. Please like and subscribe if you can, and check out my website sarahhallidayart.com, where you will find examples of my work and also online private tuition that I offer through Zoom. Thank you for watching and see you for the next one.